GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network. You're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast on the Gear Radio Network.
And we welcome you to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network.
Wait, Ryan. What podcast is this?
This is the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
The Better Live Than Dead podcast?
Yeah, we brought it back from being dead, so it's now Better Live Than Dead, I guess.
There we go. I suppose it works. What episode number is this?
Episode 183.
183, peoples.
This one is live and in living color. We mentioned that because, first off, we'll mention this episode is brought to you by puckluck.com, your one-stop resource for all your National Hockey League sports betting action. Puckluck provides win percentages and score projections for each and every National Hockey League game to tilt the ice in your favor. Not sure what to bet or just in a rut? Not to worry. Puckluck also provides expert picks to get the puck bouncing your way. Please note, though, puckluck.com, no way affiliated with the National Hockey League, its teams, or the NHLPA. Puckluck.com provides data-related to gambling and cannot guarantee the success of any suggested or related wagers. As always, please gamble responsibly. I am Ryan Wolfe, at WolfeBLTD on Twitter, which I no longer use, I think. You can follow me on the Blue Sky. It's at ryanwolfe.bsky.social.
What the hell is that?
It's Blue Sky is the Twitter equivalent of what the dude who sold Twitter, I think it was his name, Jack Dorsey. He created that after Twitter, and it's like invite only. But here's the funny thing about, well, not very funny at all. John, the internet, and again, John joining me, John Cimino at IamJCMoney on Twitter. What's your Threads gimmick?
Not on Twitter anymore. I actually deleted the Twitter.
Wow.
I deleted. I'm done with Twitter because you know what it was. And yes, I'm on Threads, but it's at IamJCMoney on Threads. At TJCMS podcast as well on Threads, and what the hell, at Gear Network is on Threads too. Basically, every account that had an Instagram, I brought it over there. Fair. But no, what I ended up deciding, it was more of a personal thing with it, is Threads. I took that as the opportunity for something new. You know, my long-standing Twitter account has been active, or had been active, starting in I think 2008, and then it famously was deactivated because and then when Elon took over, he unlocked everybody's account, so my account came back, so I was able to kind of revisit some history there, and I noticed that history is that for a reason.
Yeah,
there was so many ups and downs that were highlighted through my life at that point in time on that Twitter feed, that I'm just not that person anymore. I'm not that guy that used to be the one that would openly yell the 4-letter C word to people I hate and things like that, or
I remember those
openly
days.
Brag about someone else's shortcomings only to mask my own. And so now that I'm not that person anymore, I don't really need that history.
No, we do it on podcasts.
So I just podcasts that can at least Benoit people if I need to, but so but
it's a good way of looking at it.
Anywho's, I'm on the Threads at IamJCMoney. It's much cleaner. I don't deal with it's like dealing with Twitter, but not dealing with Twitter.
So Blue Sky made a big mistake that was recently uncovered, that they didn't block racial slurs as usernames.
Oh boy.
So someone could make the N-word be their username, among other things. Oh, so they sent out an apology and apparently fixed that error, but how do you get that far without recognizing that that's like the first thing you need to do?
Well, it's what it is. It's probably because of the market, the competitive market with Zuck bringing out Threads, and
it's been out for a while, but the thing is that like when Twitter went down, they had their biggest weekend ever, but then again also it is still...
Yeah. I don't even know. I can still see tweets that are forwarded to me, funny little tweets that are forwarded, whether, you forward them or Brandon forwards them or whatever. I can still like see them on the preview pane, but I have no desire really to go back on there. I know Gear Network and the JC Money Show podcasts, Twitters, respectively, are still on there. I didn't delete those because I don't use them anyway. So
yeah.
So they're sitting there on Twitter. They're still idle, but I don't have Twitter on my phone anymore. I'm done with it.
Yeah, we didn't even mention either. We're burying the lead here that not only are we going to have a moment of silence for how long it took us to return to the airwaves. This is the first time that we have had a Better Live Than Dead podcast grace the Gear Network airwaves since September 3rd, 2022.
Wow, that's quite a bit of time, really, when you think about it.
Sometimes you just need to take a break
and
walk away to reset, as I mentioned here in the show notes, but then also sometimes you forget that you have a podcast, or you forget that it's been so long, because looking at the date, I'm like, I literally, when I was writing the notes here for the podcast, I went back through and said, there's no way it's been that long.
Right. No, and I mean, like, for the BLTD specifically, this podcast, it's been a long time. But there's other things that happen to it. I mean, Ryan, we've had a very busy year. Not necessarily as a Gear Network, but personally and professionally in the 9 to 5, respectively.
I mean, I've got promoted at my job. John continues to kick ass at his job.
Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, they still pay you a paycheck. What is it, every week, every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks.
There you go. The check still clears every 2 weeks. That's how I feel about my job. Sometimes I'm like, look, as long as the check clears every 2 weeks, I don't care. But
for sure,
I've had some success lately. Not to toot my own horn here, but my daughter is 18 months old, so that's been a challenge. Trying to learn how to be a parent and keep another human being alive.
Unfortunately, there's no instruction manual for it, but as long as you operate, I feel, at least this is my method to my madness, as long as you operate with a large degree of logic, you'll be okay.
I've learned very quickly, too, to pay attention to other people who have kids my daughter's age, that logic is very difficult for some people.
It is.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
Now that I think about it, we probably could have hooked your other microphone up to that thing.
Oh, it's all right.
Instead of the mixer board here.
That's what I was going to say about burying the lead here, is that not only are we recording the first Better Live Than Dead podcast as September 3rd, 2022, but I can high five John because he is sitting, I don't know, 2 feet away from me.
Not even that. And but this is kind of where I've always wanted, the podcasting thing to be. I've always wanted to have like a cool little thing like this, and it's really reinvigorated my podcasting. I felt like with the products that we had, or at least that I had personally, I can't speak for you in the Wolfe Den Studios, but the products that I had here in at home base were dated, and it was not very enjoyable to, I like to incorporate sounds and, music and, of course, the fart button. I was going to say, McMahon.
You don't care about the music. You don't care about the phone. It's the fart.
It's the fart button. And Flava Flav's,
You literally told me, when you said to me, John, not to go off on a tangent here, but when you said to me, bro, I got the soundboard attached and it works, my first thought was, we're going to have a lot of farts in the podcast.
Well,
I knew it.
Well, maybe not in this one here, because your microphone is hooked up to where the soundboard would be. But you never know. Maybe in the future, trust the podcast when things go awry.
Look at when that energy drink hits. I can only imagine where that microphone's going to end up. So,
well, by this point in time, it can walk out of there.
But yeah, we are here. We are live. We are Better Live Than Dead. If you forgot about it, you can hear us on betterlivethandead.com, gearnetwork.com, wherever you get your podcast. John, actually, it's kind of funny I mentioned that because I had my I had a visit with my dentist a couple days ago. Had a couple cavities filled, and while my face was still half asleep, I was pitching the Trust the Podcast to the dentist, who then went and got his cell phone.
Really?
Followed the podcast and gave us 5 stars.
Really? No kidding.
He's like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about all this stuff." And I'm like, "Well, it's the right time of year, man."
I'll tell you what. The Trust the Podcast is it's funny because and I feel much more comfortable talking about it like this now openly, because this isn't the Bills branded podcast. But at first, it was kind of like, I liked the podcast because I liked the flow of you and Dell.
Yep.
And I liked the idea of having that connection, the Buffalo connection, some kind of sports team tied. Like, I could have done a Jets Talk podcast, but really, in this market, I don't know how well it would have done. So having a Bills Talk podcast, being Western New York based like we are, it was great, and it made a lot of sense to do. But then when you asked me to join the podcast, part of me was like, this is either going to go one of two ways. I'm either going to like fail miserably, or I'm going to drag this show down, and it's going to be smut, and it's going to be basically BLTD light. And mercifully, that has not happened. It's given me a reason to, study up on the Bills and follow the Bills, and actually, I don't want to say religiously because I don't do religion, but I almost have to follow another team in the same manner that I follow the Jets. I have to know about the Bills. I have to know about the happenings there. I have to know about who's getting signed. I have to know about how a decision impacts the organization. I have to have my finger on the pulse of Bills Mafia to understand how the decisions that, upper management in Buffalo makes or however the on-field play is, how that impacts them and how they feel. So I've actually had a lot of my Bills fans, my Bills friends who know I'm a Jets fan, actually feed me info for the podcast, or if I ask them, hey, what do you guys think about like the Diggs Josh Allen thing? I'll hear from like the horse's mouths what they felt and how they felt it impacted, and that's that was how I learned about Diggs' disdain for what Josh Allen did the night before the Cincinnati game.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. But that's cool. Shout out to your dentist for giving us.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a blast to talk to. He's a great dentist as well, which is fantastic because it makes me feel a lot more comfortable when I know that my teeth are being taken care of very well. So, Hey, if you're listening, heads up. Appreciate you. If not, we'll catch you on the Trusted Podcast coming in a few weeks because, hey, training camp starts in a couple days.
Indeed it does. And can I just nerd out for a quick moment here?
Sure.
I adjusted your levels.
Yeah.
On this soundboard.
Yeah.
And you sound terrific.
Oh, beautiful. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to see that. So, hey, if you get to this part of the podcast, thank you for sticking around. But also, we all sound very good now, which is this is the fun part about doing everything live.
Indeed.
Like what was that? Was it Rush? It was not Rush Limbaugh. It was what's his face? O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly.
We're going live.
We're doing it live. Anyways, our three big things. Starting off with Major League Baseball, we're going to run through the gamut of things here today. We're going to talk about a couple things that have happened a little while ago because I want to get some thoughts on it. First off, the Oakland Athletics are moving to Las Vegas. Now, it's not approved yet by Major League Baseball, but let's be real, the fix is in. We know.
Oh God, yeah.
We know there are other cities in the professional sports world that are ready for baseball. Nashville.
Right.
There's talks of potentially Portland being a big baseball city. But for some reason, and I think we all know why, Rob Manfred has a relative hard-on for getting a baseball team in Las Vegas.
Right. I mean, that's just the way of the land with all of the major sports.
Yeah,
they went from having no teams to having the Vegas Golden Knights and the Vegas Raiders now.
Well, and let's be real too. We have to point this out because again, women's sports don't get their due, which is
the Aces.
Not great. Yeah,
are there too.
The Aces were the first professional sports franchise in Las Vegas, then the Golden Knights, and so on and so forth from there.
I will say, though, the rise in popularity in women's sports is actually. Yes, you were absolutely right. They're not the women's sports don't get as much love as the men's sports.
Yeah, and I'm not going to stand up here on a soapbox and scream about how I think women's sports are not taken seriously, and I totally understand that. I agree with that because again, there's just so much there that it's not cool. It's unfair. But we're reaching a point now where we see, again, not to go off on a tangent here, but like the U.S. women's soccer team making sure they get fair pay. I mean, here's the thing that really bugs me about the WNBA, just off the bat. Why is it that we have a professional sports league where these people still have to fly commercial? Come on.
I think. So from a revenue perspective,
absolutely,
I can understand that we're cutting costs. But is it really necessary to cut the cost of the players?
It's just never been taken seriously, and that's not cool.
I think they're starting to make strides, though. I have to be honest. I do feel because when you look at the NBA now, and I almost feel like they should drop the W from WNBA and really just make it the National Basketball Association. During the fall and winter and spring, it's the men's division, and during the summer, it'd be the women's NBA, the women's division of the NBA. Keep it as the NBA because they're already integrating the two leagues together, so to speak. You're starting to see a lot of the men's NBA talent, Steph Curry, all of them showing up at games.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it. I think again because we've gone off on a tangent here, but this is a good one because the Aces are also happen to be the best team in the WNBA.
So Brady owns them now.
He's part of them.
He's
a part owner of them. They also have
Becky Hammon.
Becky Hammon, thank you. I was thinking of a different name, but Becky Hammon is their head coach.
For sure, I thought Becky Hammon was going to be the not the I think it was the Raptors last year or whatever.
I still think she's going to end up being the first women's head coach in the history of professional basketball, and
Absolutely.
I think that's something that will bring a set of eyes that is necessary because again, we on this podcast as fathers of daughters don't believe this because we also don't live in the Stone Age, but some people still don't believe that women belong in professional sports.
Yeah.
Just go read the comments. I don't have to pick out people's names, but again, I think we've reached the point in time, it's 2023, like we've got women who are general managers in baseball. We've got women who are executives in Major League Baseball. It's time to have, I think Becky Hammon is probably better than a large amount of the National Basketball Association.
I would agree, and I mean, I think now being not just father of a daughter, but a leader of the business, looking at it the way that I always look at everything from the big picture is I don't care what gender you are, I don't care what skin color you have, I don't care your religious beliefs. Believe it or not, Ryan, I don't even care about political views. Can you do the job? Can you, Can you bounce the ball? Can you throw the ball? Can you this? Can you, in the corporate America world, can you get these reports out by blah, blah, blah? Can you do this by blah, blah, blah? Yes. Oh, and you have experience using SQL? You're in. I don't give a shit who you support. Let's go. Let's get the job done. Like that's the mentality that leaders nowadays should be using, I feel. And hopefully, I feel like we're starting to see a slight curve in the sports world. It's not curving as fast as I think it should, but hopefully, if and when the point comes where Becky Hammond is a head coach in the NBA, the men's NBA, that would certainly help.
I think so. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that one.
I think what's it? Pat Summitt walked, so hopefully Becky Hammond can run.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those situations where the cream should rise to the top. I mean, it's
cream, rises to the top. Dig it, yeah. You get a Macho Man impersonation. See, this is what happens when it's not just Bill's talk, bro.
I like
when
it,
we get to have the variety. You understand? Yeah, we cover the first 18 minutes full of, BS, Now we can go into the three big things, because we were talking, about Major League Baseball, and then we started talking about women's sports. Yeah, and I'm going to, end the macho voice in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, back to you,
Excuse
Ryan.
me. That was impressive. That was very impressive. So, going back to Oakland, the city of Oakland was trying to get, I think it was the Howard Terminal purchased, all ready to go for a new stadium. That kept hitting snag after snag after snag after snag after snag. Then we get to the point where they say, oh, well, maybe we'll move to Las Vegas. And the maybe moving to Las Vegas becomes the potential of, well, maybe we could do it, which then becomes the, hey, we're going to do it. And this didn't happen over a long period of time. This happened pretty quick. And then Las Vegas, the Nevada State Legislature tried to push something through that was a lot of money, and they ended up agreeing to a $380 million bill that would help fund a proposed 30,000-seat, $1.5 billion retractable roof ballpark on the Tropicana Hotel site, which is right on the Strip, right across from the Excalibur.
And you've been to. I've never been to Vegas, Ryan.
Yeah.
But I know you have, and you have been recently. It's going to be probably a nice site, I would imagine.
It's literally right across. It would be right across the street from the MGM Grand, right across from New York, right across from the Excalibur. It's. I mean, even since I've been there, it's been, I think, 4 or 5 years since I've gone, maybe a little longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, like when I went, they had just started talking about the Raiders coming to town. They were just about to approve the Raiders coming into Vegas. But there's room for sports there. It's just you have to make sure you have the audience and that you're not overwhelming them, because
I guess where I've always landed on Vegas, and maybe maybe there are far more families there now than maybe there were in the 70s, 80s, and 90s or whatever, but I wonder how organic these Vegas team fan bases really are going to be. Like, are they looking to just attract people that happen to be in Vegas at that time?
That's what they thought about the Golden Knights, but then as time went on, that organic fan base started to grow. The Raiders are the Raiders. They have
the
this
Raiders.
This will be the first true test, I think, because obviously now you look at who's left. You've got, I don't know if the MLS will ever come, just because it's hard to play soccer in the summer in
Vegas, absolutely.
Degree temperature, whatever, 120, 130 degree.
Well, I mean, maybe if they share the Allegiant Stadium.
Yep, that's a possibility. But then you look at this baseball stadium, which I may add too. Very funny if you look at the drawings.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Oakland Coliseum just without a bunch of seats. Not kidding. It's so funny. So like building a 30,000 seat stadium, not the greatest, because revenue there, it will be very limited.
Right.
But with that being said, if you can get that organic fan base and get Oakland to spend some money finally, because that's been the problem forever.
For sure.
Is now this year they started off, they were on pace to have one of the worst seasons in the history of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they've been based in Oakland since 1968. They hope to break ground next year and open the venue in time for 2028. The lease at the Oakland Coliseum expires after 2024. Their interim home is yet to be decided. But it looks like they could play baseball at the AAA Stadium in Las Vegas, which is not a retractable roof, which means they will probably spend a lot of their summer on the road, I would have to think, which also is not.
Have to be.
Not
Yeah,
great.
have to be. If Oakland is not going to at least extend them and try to get what they can, financially out of them. I know the reverse boycott worked out so well for that fan base, but they might be facing a situation where they're playing on the road an awful lot during a stretch of time, or again maybe field sharing somewhere close by, San Francisco or San Diego or something opposite them, and they're going to have to get creative if Oakland justify. And I'm not saying Oakland shouldn't be salty about losing their team. There's obviously going to be a bit of saltiness by the fan base, especially
Oakland,
because the city of Oakland had their opportunity really to kind of make something happen, and they didn't. It just couldn't happen.
I mean, I can see why the Raiders left and why the Warriors left, but the Athletics leaving feels more like a coup than anything, where it's just like, okay, well, the Golden State Warriors left because they want to be bigger. They want to be in San Francisco. They want to build a big arena. They want to have like splashy, flashy, all that stuff. Whatever.
Yeah, and I get that.
The Raiders, that was just more of a personal vendetta for the Davis family.
Mm-hmm.
But the Athletics, it doesn't. I mean, their stadium is awful. Let's not get it wrong.
Their stadium is garbage. That's the same stadium that the Raiders played in.
Yeah,
and
the same stadium that has raw sewage coming out of the toilets. Multiple times a season. Like,
it's
absurd.
One of those things where I really I feel bad for the city of Oakland, because they went from being a major sports city to now they're going to be Rochester, pretty much.
Yeah.
And not that saying Rochester's a bad thing. I absolutely love the Red Wings. I absolutely love the Amerks. I love the Nighthawks, even though I haven't been to the latest version of.
Well, I mean, it's a good example.
Mean,
that's a good example, because you think, now that I'm thinking about it, they had a basketball team back in the 50s. That's gone. They had a soccer team that was on the brink of potentially pushing toward becoming an MLS team, or at least being very.
You're
close.
talking about Rochester?
Yeah,
the Rhinos.
And
They always used to play friendlies against.
But then you look at the Nighthawks too.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, where the Nighthawks left. They were sold. And then when they were sold, they were immediately promised an expansion franchise. So even, not only did they lose the team, they lost all of the history with the team. So all of those championships don't actually count or don't matter because they didn't happen with this team.
Yeah,
very weird. But
I mean, that's kind of the same thing with like Seattle and, or I'm sorry, not Seattle. Cleveland when the original Browns moved to Baltimore to become the Ravens. They kept the city, the name, the lineage, and all that stuff. It's not uncommon, but it's still kind of weird when they do that.
Yeah, I was just reading something about Shohei Ohtani, which actually can bring me to my next point here. Talking about our midseason MVPs now in the National League. We'll just mention it really quickly because we might be seeing some history happening here. Mm-hmm. The Atlanta Braves' Ronald Acuna Jr. at the All-Star break, he's hitting .331 with 21 home runs while leading the majors in runs scored with 79.
Right.
He's driven home 55 runs despite hitting leadoff. Leads the league with 41 stolen bases. He also leads the league in OPS plus, total bases, total time or times on base. Has a huge lead in wins above replacement. This article here that I copied and pasted this from, I'm sorry, said he's such a complete hitter that he's second in average, third on OBP, and second in slugging. We may see a 40, there's a potential we're going to see 40-40 because he just needs 19 more home runs, which shouldn't be a problem for him.
But we got plenty of time left for that.
We could see 40-60, 40-70, 40-80, where he hits 40 home runs, 80 stolen bases. Like, the new pitch clock rules have opened up the game, opened up that side of the game where we're seeing stolen base numbers we haven't seen in a long time.
I love it.
It's so much fun.
I loved it. I love the new baseball rules. And you know what's cool and that I'm noticing now is even most traditionalists that I know are coming around to the new rules and are like, okay, maybe it's not so bad. Like, dude, going to a Red Wings game, especially with their earlier start times now, they start at 6:40 or 6:45 as opposed to 7:05 or 7:15. And you go in at 6:45, game first pitch maybe 6:50, right after the festivities or whatever. You're home by 9.
It's so nice.
It's incredible. It's great.
Or I can turn on a Red Sox game, and I mean I haven't watched a ton of them because they've been moderately mediocre this entire year. But you turn a Sox game on at 7:00, and by 9:30,
you're good.
At the latest, it's over.
Yeah,
and you're like, cool. I don't have to. Like, don't get me wrong. The Red Sox Yankees games of the past where they're 4 or 5 hours long, and it was like a slugfest, a dogfight. Those were great.
Those were great when they were like that. But
now it's like every game was, hey, we're going to play the pick on the Oakland Athletics. It's going to be a game with the Oakland Athletics who are dog water, and that game still is going to take 4.5 hours.
Right. Yes. When there's strategy involved in those big games, especially Yankees Red Sox, and I'm talking our most recent, the Jeter Pedro Poppy era, you know what I mean? Like, those games were going 4 or 5 hours at a time, but they were always intense, and there was a lot of strategy involved with it. So that made it acceptable a lot of the times, especially in big game scenarios. But to your point, absolutely. Like, no one wants to go to a Oakland A's versus I don't know, the Tampa Rays game in Tropicana Field, where no one attends anyways, and watch a 5-hour game with those two.
Yeah, it's crazy to me, too, that, I mean, we've talked about this. It's probably the location. It's probably the fact that Florida is God's waiting room. But, like, the Rays have been so good for so long, and no one goes.
I swear to God, if you take that team as is and put it in Montreal, it's going to be. It would be one of the hottest markets.
It's hilarious to me, too, because they keep getting... They keep getting sniped by other teams. People keep hiring people from Tampa,
right?
And they just next man up,
right?
Next woman up.
Yeah, whatever it is with that
impressive.
Tampa does, they do good. It sucks that their fan base doesn't appreciate it, or that they don't even have a fan base besides Dick Vitale, But
so Oakland gets credit for Moneyball because it's so cute, and they made a really good movie about it. They had a really good book about it as well, which is obviously where the movie comes from. Mm-hmm. But like, somebody should investigate the Tampa Rays and write about them, because whatever they're doing down in Tampa is incredible. It's kind of what they've done. They took, I think it's Andrew Friedman they took from Tampa, Los Angeles did. So they're doing Rays ball in L.A., but with a $400 million budget,
of course.
But at the end of the day, it's really interesting to see what Tampa does, because every year they're competitive. And then, I mean, granted, I think teams like the Red Sox are purposely dogging it, because they want to make sure they're not spending a lot of money if they're not going to try to be competitive, which is really bad for the game. But that's a different conversation for a different time.
Of course.
But speaking of big names, big games.
So before you do that, I know you have the show written out here, and we're still on the first of the three big things.
Yep.
But we're approaching break time. So
let's do it.
No, let's finish the first big thing, and then we'll do a commercial break, and then we'll go to the second big thing, and go from there.
That works for me.
Live producing as we're doing it, baby.
And we don't really have, after our commercial break where we would wrap it up, we don't really have much to talk about there. So
Exactly.
We'll change things up here a little bit.
All right.
AL MVP Shohei Ohtani, no surprise there. But here's the thing: Shohei Ohtani, 302. This is at the All-Star break. The Angels have already started back after the All-Star break, but at the break, 302 average, 32 homers, 71 RBIs, 1.050 OPS with a 7-4 record, 3.32 ERA, 101 third innings pitched, 132 strikeouts, and 17 starts at the All-Star break. Led Major League Baseball in OPS, slugging, home runs, triples. Batting average against for a pitcher, he's third in RBIs, eighth in hits, ninth in runs, 10th in average, and fourth most strikeouts as a pitcher in Major League Baseball.
It really is a damn shame that he's in Anaheim right now.
Now, granted, he did leave his third straight start on Friday night with finger pain. He has a blister, a cracked fingernail, but also he's just having a lot of trouble. I don't know that he's going to be able to pitch for a little while. I mean, batting is not obviously going to be a problem, I don't think, but
Right.
The Angels continue to be the Angels.
Yep.
They've repeatedly said they're not going to trade Shohei Ohtani away, which if they don't trade Shohei Ohtani away, John, they get a compensatory pick. So at the end of the first round, they'll get a pick,
Okay.
which whatever.
Well, that they're probably going to do a whole lot of nothing with anyways.
Yeah, because they're awful. John Morosi reports, quote, as I reported on MLB Network this morning, sources tell me the Angels front office will consider incoming trade inquiries for Shohei Ohtani. The club is not ruling out the possibility of a deadline deal, even though the standard to move Ohtani is extraordinarily high. The team's performance over the upcoming homestand will be a big consideration in the Angels' ultimate course. At this point, many in the industry still view a trade as unlikely. Now, heading into the All-Star break, the Angels lost 9 of 10 and recently lost Mike Trout to a broken hamate bone.
That
in his hand.
poor dude can't catch a break. Mike Trout.
I feel like if he were not in Los Angeles or Los Angeles in Anaheim.
Yeah.
Anaheim, apologize. Things might be better, but he's just had horrible luck.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, meanwhile, blogs all over the internet have speculated what it will cost for the Angels to trade Shohei Ohtani. And these are just speculation. This is not even any insider sourcing here. But if Boston wanted to get Shohei Ohtani, it would cost them Marcelo Meyer, who is their first best prospect per MLB.com. Brian Bayo, who's in Major League Baseball, very promising prospect, looking really good this year. Sedan Rafaela, I probably pronounced that name wrong because that's my job. He is the second best prospect in the Red Sox organization, and Tristan Cassis, who is also in Major League Baseball, supposed to be the first baseman of the future. That's a lot of scratch right there.
Absolutely.
Looking at the Mets, outfielder Alex Ramirez, the fourth best prospect in the organization. Shortstop Jet Williams, third best. Shortstop Ronnie Mauricio, the second best. Starting pitcher David Peterson, who's also in Major League Baseball, and utility man Luis Guillorme, thank you. My brain just had a seizure when I went to go say that. Also in Major League Baseball. So again, the price is expected to be very high. But ESPN says that the Yankees are most motivated to trade for Ohtani, while the Dodgers are most likely to sign Ohtani in the offseason. Shockingly. This here says, sources have told ESPN's Buster Olney the Yankees are that club that is most interested in trying to trade for him. In talking with sources yesterday, the Yankees they see the Yankees as potentially being most motivated because Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, they're middle-aged players right in the prime of their careers. This is the Yankees' window to win now.
I would agree, absolutely.
But with the injuries, though...
Right, the injuries has been a very, very, very big story with the New York Yankees. But I mean, also you got to look at some of the things that they thought they might have had that they just don't, like Giancarlo Stanton, for example.
I mean, at the time of recording here, the Yankees are tied for last, but are last in the AL East, 8.5 games back of Tampa Bay, but only 2 games back in the wild card. The Red Sox are, again, they're doing this weird thing where they're really good, and then they've won 9 of 10, 6 straight, and then they'll go on a losing streak where they look like they forgot how to play baseball.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Almost recent history with the Red Sox, it seems to do that. Like they'll go really good for a stretch of time. You'll think, oh, we're back,
Well,
and then
they like to cry poor and pretend like they can't afford good players. But I think they're just trying to reset. But reset for who? I mean, maybe Ohtani, but
I don't know.
That's a lot of money right there. But
Indeed.
But
But like with the Dodgers and their payroll coming into play, though, now they
did the
obviously-
same thing where they cut a lot of payroll, which makes people think that they're going to get Ohtani. Here, per Jorge Castillo of the LA Times, quote, one rival team executive who spoke on the condition of anonymity because tampering rules forbid him to discuss prospective free agents on other teams. He was willing to bet a sushi dinner on the Dodgers, quote. 3 other executives echoed that it's the Dodgers than everyone else. Multiple agents granted anonymity to speak freely also agreed. I mean, if the Dodgers don't sign Shohei Ohtani, whom they wanted to sign out of high school years ago, but he wanted to DH, he didn't want to also play the position in the field and pitch.
And now with a universal DH.
Dave Roberts said that he wanted to DH and they just couldn't do it. It seemed like the Dodgers are the landing spot for Shohei Ohtani. I thought it was the Mets. I mean, maybe the Mets will pay him a lot more than everybody else, which is possible.
It's possible.
But right now, the one thing I wanted to bring up too, John, because the big change this year in Major League Baseball has been the fact that we no longer have 19 games against every other team in the AL East or every other team in the division. It's broken down where every team plays each other at least once in the season.
Yeah.
So there's some parity around the league, but there are a few teams who have separated themselves, but a lot of teams continue to be around 500. And that's very weird.
It is pretty weird. I will say one thing about old baseball that I do miss is the interleague play, interleague series, where there was a 2-week stretch of time where it was just.
And we'll talk a little bit more about this later in the podcast. We've got a fun new segment we're going to try out here. Shohei Ohtani, I would not be surprised if he stayed in LA, which I think I would actually be more surprised if he got traded, just because the Angels go against the grain of literally everything.
They do.
But they could retool very quickly if they know Ohtani is not sticking around.
Right.
At this point, why would he?
Right. I don't blame him. It's almost like kind of Felix Hernandez in Seattle vibes I'm getting, where, King Felix was King Felix. That dude was dominant and should be a 300-game winner. And instead, he floundered in Seattle his career and didn't have much around him. And he's remembered as a very good Hall of Very Good because of it.
I think that again, Shohei Ohtani, there's no way he's an Angel next season. If you know that, excuse me, you just got to move on.
Absolutely. Speaking of moving on,
with that being said, we'll be back with more Better Live Than Dead the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
Yes,
after a quick commercial break here on the Gear Radio Network. And we're back here on the Better Live Than Dead podcast. I almost said we're back here on Trust the Podcast just based
old habits die hard, man.
Old habits, yeah. But hey, it's a good transition. We're talking about the National Football League, something I've been waiting to ask you about all summer. Aaron Rodgers.
It would have been very hard to ask on Trust the Podcast.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet. He's in the Big Apple or the Big New Jersey, whatever they call it down there. Again, been waiting all summer to get some good content on this one from Bills Mafia's favorite Jets fan, John.
That's me.
The Jets brought in Nathaniel Hackett, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb. They're trying to make Aaron Rodgers comfortable in New York. I mean, it was the worst kept secret throughout the entire summer.
Oh yeah.
Simply based off of compensation, but now Aaron Rodgers under center for the New York Jets. How much of a difference do you think adding Aaron Rodgers to the mix will make for the New York Jets?
It's going to make a major difference. If not quarterback play, it will certainly make a major difference in leadership and experience behind center. It's one thing to have Joe Flacco, right? Which they did for 2 out of the last, I think.
Elite
Joe Flacco. 2 out of the last, I think, 4 seasons. Flacco was with New York, and for all intents and purposes, he was there to serve as a backup to Zach Wilson coming up, and kind of show him the ropes there or whatever, but. We knew when we had Joe Flacco that he wasn't going to be Baltimore Joe. He wasn't going to be the Joe Flacco that was always in the playoffs with the Ravens and had a good team around him like that. This was a Joe Flacco that was there to kind of impart wisdom and knowledge and whatever, and couldn't still go like he may have been able to in the past. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, he still can go, and that's different territory. Yes, he's on the twilight of his career, kind of. He's at the closer to the end than the beginning. And I don't know that this is necessarily Brady to the Buccaneers kind of impact where you knew, like, Tom Brady was Tom Brady, and wherever he went, everything was going to follow. He made Tampa, and we can talk about this at another time and date, but I also think Tampa should honor Tom Brady as one of their franchise greats, even though he only played for 3 seasons there. But that's a different story for a different time.
What he did in those 3 seasons.
Exactly. And I'm wondering now if Aaron Rodgers saw something like that and thinks that, this opportunity with the New York Jets, with a team that was much improved last year, that literally, was a quarterback, I would say was a quarterback away from a wild card. They contended all the way through until December, which was, unheard of for the Jets for the last 10 seasons. Can Rodgers still be effective? Absolutely. You see his touchdown to interception ratio. You see how he always approaches the game. He's very careful and meticulous. I would argue that younger Aaron Rodgers was Mahomes before Mahomes was Mahomes. With his style of play and the way he thinks, the way he attacks his game on the field, and the players, the teammates around him love him. He already commands that locker room. He already has the wide receivers on board. He's got the running back on board. The offensive line is happy to block for him and seems to be engaged. And then I've been watching these episodes of One Jets Drive, which is a Jets talk produced, like it's like Hard Knocks, but just produced by the New York Jets instead for their website. And the one common theme that I've been hearing throughout that is how vocal Aaron Rodgers is in the meetings, not just with the quarterback meetings, but just team meetings, where Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, they didn't really have that until excuse me. They didn't really have that the last few years. The time that they had before that, Ryan Fitzpatrick was the quarterback, and he was speaking up in the QB room and that type of stuff. But they didn't have that after Fitzpatrick, between Fitzpatrick and Rodgers. They didn't really have that because they went younger, and they were hoping that they were going to develop the next big superstar. And the Jets have historically, and I'll shut up in a minute, Ryan.
You're okay.
The Jets have historically been one of those teams that have not been able to do that. They've been able to build seemingly every other position. Cornerback, Darrelle Revis, right? Curtis Martin, running back. Al Toon, going even farther back. Al Toon. They've done very well in developing other positions, other key positions, wide receiver, running back, lineman, all that. They seem to do very well there, but quarterback is their Achilles heel. They just cannot develop a quarterback to save their ass. So they need to be in the Jets have to recognize the fact that they are the team that's going to constantly have to go and get veteran quarterbacks or, almost upper echelon quarterbacks or upper echelon quarterbacks that are in the tail end of their career if they want to win and be consistently good. They have to do it.
I mean, looking at the statistics here, I'm just trying to see where the Jets fell last year in the National Football League defensively. It felt like the defense was good.
The defense was very good.
But when you have a team that last year just did not break through due to injuries, ineffectiveness. I mean, last season their guy was Mike White at one point. You didn't mention him, who he is now the backup quarterback for the Miami Dolphins.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, he got paid 2 years, $8 million. If nothing else, he's going to get $4.5 million this season, it looks like.
Absolutely. Good, and good for him, too. I loved Mike White. I loved his energy. I loved how the team came around him, and especially after the whole Zach Wilson thing where he wasn't moving the ball at all that one game, and then it was asked famously, do you feel like you let the defense down? And he said no. And the defense is like, what the we did our part. We stopped everything.
So looking defensively, the Jets, I mean, they've got a lot of very talented guys. They're bringing back. They just re-signed Quinnen Williams to a long-term deal. So they've got a lot of people on that defensive side of the ball that they should be relatively good.
Yeah.
Offensively, it feels like there are a lot of question marks just because you don't know what to expect out of this team. I mean, last year, Aaron Rodgers, 17 games, they went 8-9. He had 3,695 passing yards, 26 touches, 12 interceptions. This is arguably, and this is not me being a homer, John, the AFC East is arguably the most difficult division in the National Football League.
Oh my God, it got even more difficult now with Rodgers addition in there, because you maybe have his skills diminished. If you're looking at last year's stats, yeah, he didn't have an Aaron Rodgers like season.
Yep.
But in the same, what were the variables with that?
Well, if you have what I was going to say too is if Breece Hall returns from his knee injury and is healthy and is the same player he was before his knee injury, that will help.
Yeah, absolutely.
They brought in Mecole Hardman, who we know is a burner, where if you get him the ball, he'll be able to take off. That will help out too. Allen Lazard has had success with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay.
Of course.
That will help too. He's got Garrett Wilson. That alone out of the box, that's going to help too.
Randall Cobb, the experience there,
Yeah, but again, here's the big question mark. If Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, Zach Wilson is the guy.
Right.
And then all of a sudden... So it seems to me like, again, it's apples to oranges, but if you look at the Miami Dolphins, I know Mike White is not the greatest backup quarterback in the National Football League, but we've seen he's serviceable. Even with a team like the Jets, which, again, John, not trying to piss you off here.
No,
it's last year, the offense was lackluster.
The offense was lackluster.
Which is why Aaron Rodgers is in New York now.
Right, of course. If Mike White was, next big thing, then it would be his team.
Yeah.
And I don't think they would have gone after Aaron Rodgers. I think they would have just given the nod to Mike White.
And I don't think they want to give up on Zach Wilson either, because obviously that is a very big swing and miss.
Yes, it is, and I think Zach Wilson is just, his problem is he hasn't had enough humble pie given to him. If you look at his life story, he's never been given
around you with.
Yeah, he's never been given the humble pie, and I think last year was a big slice of humble pie. Zach Wilson his story almost in a way reminds me a little bit of Alex Smith, where Alex Smith was number one, high draft pick from the Niners, and he was just up and down, and got benched for Kaepernick, got benched for this person, and then came back and ultimately caught on, and then ended his career. Well, he had a stint in Kansas City for a few years before Mahomes got there, and he was great. He found
Andy Reid was the best thing that ever happened.
Exactly. So I'm hoping that, in the hypothetical where if Aaron Rodgers were to get hurt, and Zach Wilson would come in, I'm hoping that at least in the training camp and everything that has led up to that point, like maybe Zach Wilson having someone like Aaron Rodgers to pick the brain and learn from and sit behind and watch, where he didn't have that before. He didn't have that chance before because his skill or whatever, they wanted him out there. He beat out Joe Flacco. He beat out any veteran that they had. So he never had the opportunity to sit back and learn. And maybe just a personality like Zach Wilson's, maybe he needed that. Maybe he needed that.
Well, I think he also seems like the type of guy, too, that he doesn't, he needs to know that he doesn't have to be the guy.
Right.
And I think that's the one thing that's going to help Aaron Rodgers this year, is that he doesn't necessarily have to be the guy, because while the Buffalo Bills, and this is not me being Homer Bills fan, this is me being logical sports fan, the Buffalo Bills are still head and shoulders above everybody else in the AFC East. The gap to second is definitely getting smaller. The pressure's definitely coming up, getting a little tighter. But when you look at what Miami's done, the things that Miami has added, I mean, Tua Tagovailoa looks like a linebacker now. Not sure that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And he's been practicing MMA in the offseason to help avoid concussions, which, again, unless you're going to put the opposing defensive end in a triangle choke when he tries to sack you, I don't know how that's going to help. But I feel like if Tua goes down and Mike White steps in, he can be serviceable, so that's not huge. If, God forbid, if Josh Allen were to get hurt or be down for a little while, the Buffalo Bills can make do with what they have. They'll be fine. I think that New England will be better this year because, again, in New England, they kind of have the same type of issue with Mac Jones that the Jets have with Zach Wilson.
Right.
It's kind of a same page, different book type of scenario.
Yep.
Where Mac Jones came out of the gate and looked promising, and then kind of stepped back in his sophomore season. And now they brought Bill O'Brien back to be the offensive coordinator, who has, despite the fact that he's not a great head coach in the National Football League, He has been able to work well in shockingly, a coach works well under Bill Belichick.
Right.
I feel like that will be that'll be something that's going to be.
Well, I mean, not Matt Patricia as the offensive coordinator. That was stupid.
If you ask me to speak Spanish, I'm going to have trouble, obviously, John. Like saying, hey, we're going to take this guy and we're going to let this guy be the offensive coordinator who's never coached an offense in his life.
Right.
You're going to have a bad time.
Of course.
And I mean, honestly, looking at.
Like, I couldn't blame McCorkle that day for being like, dude, call a play.
Can I be real, though? Like, looking at Houston, like, I mean, wasn't horrible.
No.
But again, guys coach better in New England. So I feel like Bill O'Brien with Mac Jones, that'll probably be a nice little shot in the arm. So again,
absolutely.
While the Jets have gotten better with Aaron Rodgers, everybody else has continued to get better as well, which is why I continue to go back to the original point of I think the AFC East is the hardest division in the National Football League.
It is.
And these teams will beat the crap out of each other.
It seems like it goes in stages, too, because it feels like a few years ago, the AFC West was the one. That was the toughest division to play, and now the East is kind of
the problem in the West, I think, is that they all put their eggs in one basket of, well, we got to sack Mahomes,
right?
But like they don't realize or started to realize that Patrick Mahomes plays his best football when he's under pressure.
Absolutely,
he does. When you blitz Patrick Mahomes, he's a better quarterback than when you don't.
Right.
So that kind of blew up in their faces as well. But to see the AFC West get stronger. I don't necessarily know that the Raiders are any better than they were the year before.
No.
But again, when you've got Justin Herbert, I think that if the Chargers, and again, this is kind of becoming like an NFL season preview cast, which we've got to do one of those.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert in Los Angeles, I think if Brandon Staley doesn't do the damn thing this year and like get them in the playoffs and get them a playoff win, he's probably gone. Because, again, that's a very talented team.
It is.
But they seem like they've hit the glass ceiling. They got to break through it at this point.
Right, right.
Don't forget, bringing us to our next topic here, the Denver Broncos are there
Speaking of the West,
with Sean Payton.
Let him cook. Let him cook, Pate. Let him cook.
And to kind of just slam on the brakes here, I want to ask you this. Will Sean Payton let Russ cook? Sean Payton, 152-89 in his regular season coaching career, has not coached since 2021 with the New Orleans Saints when he famously had Drew Brees under center.
Right.
Last season, Russell Wilson looked more cooked than cooking.
Right.
4-11 in 15 games, 524 passing yards, 16 touches, 11 interceptions. He's working his way through a 5-year, $242 million, $588,236 contract per spot track. Always appreciate that. The Denver Broncos should be better next year on paper, just with Sean Payton as their head coach.
Yes.
But, their defense should win them enough games. It's like I feel like with the Jets, with the Bills, with the Dolphins, with the Broncos, with the Chargers, defenses alone should get you to 500.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm. People are going to say, "Bro, what are you smoking?" Because I'm not like the Bills' offense alone. Get rid of the defense. The Bills' offense could win you 10, 12 games easily.
Sure.
But that's where I say, like, okay, you're going to have games throughout the season where the Broncos' defense is going to pick Russ up. There's going to be games where Russ has to pick the defense up, which gets you from that 8-9 record to 12-5,
right,
13 and I
sure.
have to do the math because I'm thinking 16 games. I was like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
I'm still
you go 8-8 to 12-4, and I'm like, no, but there's extra games.
I still the 17th game still throws me off.
But
too.
Looking at Russell Wilson last year, it almost looked like he's just kind of done, which.
Well,
I don't want to say it. That's why I say cooked.
Yes.
Because let Russ cook. Russ looks cooked.
So I'm going to err on the side of because he's still
real quick.
enough.
This is for Brayton, friend of the pod.
Hi, Brayton.
Brayton, let's ride.
Hi, Brayton.
Real quick, behind the scenes, we went to the Bills and Broncos preseason game last year.
I know.
We both had a couple adult beverages, a couple few adult beverages.
I was pissed. I wanted to go.
There was a Russell Wilson fan in front of us who was wearing a Russell Wilson Seahawks jersey who audibly was pissed at us because all we did every single time was just yell, "Let's ride." We said it probably 300 times that day. It was awful. It's still like an inside joke for us.
Yeah,
but
no.
Brayton, let's ride.
Listen, no, I need to. I'm I have to go. I have to get to a Bills game at the old stadium just to appreciate the long lines of the bathrooms before the new one's built again.
There's nothing that gives you character and builds your character, John, like peeing in a bathroom in a trough with 30 other grown men standing all around, all peeing into the same area at the same time.
Yep, nothing like it. Yeah. Nothing like it. That gives you those warm 1990s Buffalo Bills teams vibes there with that. But no,
they're going to make a pretty penny off those. That's the one thing I'm looking out. And if anybody's got an inside line on all this stuff, got to get seats from the current stadium. But they're going to sell those troughs, and someone's going to buy them, and they're going to make a pretty penny off.
Oh, I'm sure they are
memories.
I'm not going to buy.
Also, I really want to get one of the signs from Highmark Stadium that says, "Please do not pee in the sink." They have those.
That would be great. That would be great.
Yeah,
that would be great. I can't wait. There's going to be some artifacts. I might have to throw my money in the hat to pick up some sort of memorabilia from that stadium before it's torn down. But a lot of memories in that stadium. I do want to get to a game though. If it's a Bills-Jets game, I'll obviously be in Jets gear, but I do have some acceptable form of Buffalo Bills gear that I would wear.
I could get you a Bills jersey that says like money on the back or something, but it's got to be number 69 though.
69.
I was going to get a
69 is your number though.
I was going to get Pizza Man. It's not even. I didn't do it on purpose.
That's your gimmick.
That is. It is.
My gimmick. I could.
You think of to do a 420?
Like you? I suppose I could do. No, that's Hellcat's gimmick. I can't
legalize it. It's legalized, baby.
It's legal now. I mean, it's no. Well, it's no secret.
It was so much more fun when it wasn't legal and you could yell legalize it all the time. Now the gimmick is kind of like, well.
I don't know. I mean,
what are we going to legalize next?
I feel the people it hurts the most is your friendly neighborhood dealer.
That's true. Yeah. I was going to say the thing that hurts most are the Fox News viewers who get mad about all that stuff.
No, fuck them.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I try to be best.
But anyways,
I try to present a radio image.
Well,
so
rolling
I'm going to censor that. I'll leave it uncensored on the Patreon page, but I'm going to censor that.
Rolling back to this real quick because again, there's not really much to talk about here. The reason I bring this up, John, research shows Russell Wilson has 12 bathrooms in his house.
Oh.
Irrelevant, but presented for discussion because last year, I'm not kidding you, Broncos fans were tracking, will Russell have more bathrooms than touchdowns in the 2022 NFL season? And there were multiple articles written that said Russell Wilson has thrown his 13th touchdown. He now has more touchdown passes than bathrooms.
I wonder.
These are the kinds of things that we look for on the Better Live Than Dead podcast. We don't want stats. We want things.
This is what I will conclude with, and then we're going to have to go to another commercial break. I wonder, has Russell Wilson pooped in every single one of those bathrooms?
You have to.
I would imagine you have to. Like, you have to plan your shit schedule around.
I mean, my house has 4 toilets in it. And I make sure when I first moved in to, like, cyclically switch somewhere until I found the one I like the most. I'm like, okay, this is my bathroom. But, because again, when you have a bathroom in your bedroom and it's attached to your bedroom, you don't want to poop in that bathroom and be like, I'm going to go to bed now because your room smells like poop. You don't want to do that.
No, man.
That's amateur hour. So yeah, make sure you always cycle, especially not to mention too, it keeps the toilets clean because then the water's running. And then if the water sits, you get the water ring and it just looks bad.
No, I get it. I have 2 bathrooms here in this house, 2 full bathrooms. And the one bathroom is the one that's mainly used up in the main floor here. I'm going to be remodeling the bathroom down here soon enough, probably within the year. And when I do that, that's about to be mine. That's my bathroom.
Yeah,
y'all ain't no one going in there. I mean, guests could probably go take a poop down there, but so it's not.
I asked my wife if we could replace the sink in the basement with a urinal, and she immediately told me no.
What?
I thought it'd be great because I work in the basement.
When I went to the late
relatively cheap too.
When I went to the late great Brody Lee's a few summers ago now. God, it's been a while since he's passed now.
We're old, man.
But when I went there, and I remember we were walking. His wife Amanda was giving me the tour of the house, and when she showed me the bathroom, I looked at, and there was a urinal in one of the bathrooms downstairs, at his old house in Webster, and I looked at the urinal, and I looked at Amanda, and I looked at the urinal again, and I said, I have to use that, right? And she was like, everybody has to. So it's funny. Having a urinal in the house was freaking great. And, and Brody was all about it, too. He was like, dude, having the urinal in the bathroom is the freaking best.
Right now, you can go get from Home Depot an American Standard urinal for $300.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it's not like it's not in there. You can ship it right to Greece, the store. It's
look at that,
right around the corner.
Look at that,
John. Yeah.
Look at that. So now, not only do we bless you with
sports,
sports,
you know what you should do.
What?
I've got an idea. You get a urinal. And you make it the Brody Lee Memorial Urinal because that is a fantastic story. No disrespect to him because it's a great story.
I'm sure that would be. I don't know. Honestly, he'd probably laugh.
It's a great.
He'd probably, if I were to be like, hey, dude, I'm naming my urinal after you, you'd be like, fucking, that's awesome.
Well, anyways, we don't normally take 2 breaks here, but we also normally don't podcast together in real life, so we're taking advantage of it. So.
Yes. Well, we're eclipsing the 60-minute mark now, and so we definitely need to have more commercial breaks. We have infinite amount of time.
We got to pay the bills.
Commercial breaks, exactly that. Yeah. So.
You want to throw this one to commercial
I'll do this one here. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back right after this quick commercial break on the Better Live Than podcast here on the Gear Radio Network. Stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back here. Better Live Than Dead podcast. Gear Radio Network. John Cimino here. Ryan Wolfe there.
It's really funny when we're sitting here and we're pretending like we're the guys from Wayne's World when they go 5, 4, 3... it's great. But then I look at John and I'm pointing to him like he looks at me like I'm bringing it back. I point to him. I'm like, no, you could take it back.
Oh, I thought you were going to take it back. You're the host of the podcast. I'm just co-host.
We're going to try something new here this week because, I don't know. We haven't done this podcast in a while. We got to shake things up a bit.
Sure.
So our third of the 3 big things, which will be our wrap up, but also our third of the 3 big things, hot take corner. Because I feel like this is relatively important because, again, I mentioned before, the new balanced schedule, Major League Baseball, includes 13 teams against division rivals, totaling 52 games. Excuse me. This also includes each team playing each other at least once, which would be playing them once would be what do they call a series? That's the word I was looking for.
There we go.
It feels like it's created parity, but the playoffs need to follow suit, John. And I mention this because
I read this and I'm a little confused.
The current playoff system, seeding system, can kick rocks, right? And I say this because right now, at the All-Star break, the Cleveland Guardians are 45-45. If you know how when you go to the NFL website and you can put it by the stats by conference or by league?
Yeah.
If you go by league stats, league standings, 45-45 puts the Cleveland Guardians at the 17th best record in baseball.
Okay.
But because they led the Central at the time, they get the playoff berth, and they get home field advantage in at least one series. So if they play,
because they lead their division.
Yeah, if they play 5, they play the DS 5 games. They play 3 in Cleveland.
Okay.
So that seems kind of ridiculous. It gets worse when you look at Baltimore playing their ass off.
Right.
They're 54-35 at the break, 3rd best record in baseball. Miami at 53-39. 4th best record in baseball. They're out of playoff spots. Now, again, I understand you can't just say, well, we'll take the X amount of best teams and go that way. But at what point, it's something we've seen in the National Football League too. At what point do you say, hey, we have to have divisions because of traveling and just logistics. But at what point does it go, I don't care if you're a wild card team. Mm-hmm. You're going to get home field advantage because you're way better. Like right now, and again, this is after playing 1 game. Mm-hmm. Baltimore leads the wild card, 55-35.
Okay.
So I guess they're in the playoffs, but they're not like leading a division. I guess that's the best way to put it.
All right.
They're 55-35. The Minnesota Twins now lead the Central at 46-46.
Okay.
So Baltimore has 9 games on Minnesota. So why doesn't Baltimore get home field advantage?
I feel like this is almost like the annual NFL argument when like a 7-9 team wins their division and gets a home field game, a home field game versus a 11-6 team, right?
Yeah, maybe I should have thought this out.
That's a wild card. So I feel like there's that. So but I pose this question, and I wonder your opinion on it, and if you could, if you wouldn't mind just moving your hand just a little lower off on the mic.
I was playing with the mic shield.
Yeah, it's coming through.
Sorry.
It's all good. But here's the question I have: do you think baseball may be ready or should consider the possibility of going to a like a BCS style kind of ranking, where the old college BCS rules? I don't know if you remember those.
I think they need to change something, because as baseball continues to grow, as we see the pitch clock being originally much maligned, but now it's becoming the thing. We're seeing faster games. We're seeing more fans show up, more interest, better ratings, all that stuff. Need to find a way to fix the playoffs.
Oh, well, I'm thinking it might be worth exploring. I know, but then the problem with doing the BCS style, though, is you could have the potential to have whatever baseball's version of the Alabama Crimson Tide is in every single championship game.
The Dodgers?
Yeah, right. It could be the Dodgers. It could be the Yankees. It could be the Red Sox.
Looking at the stats right now, the AL Central should be abolished. 46 and 46 the Twins, 45-46 Cleveland, 40-50 Detroit, 38-55 the White Sox, which is mind-blowing. The Royals are 26 and 65. That's so there's no team above 500 in the Central.
Jesus.
Like
26 and 65? Yikes.
Oakland is 25 and 68. Dog water.
Yeah, but you kind of expect that with Oakland, but Kansas City had been successful recently.
Here's something that's actually popped up that I wanted to ask you. Let me get it. Let's do this live here.
Doing it live.
Just get the gimmick all popped up as we're talking here.
Sure.
Gonna get the couple websites.
Jealous of seeing how fast your laptop moves, by the way.
It's all about that RAM, baby.
My freaking thing don't go.
So right now, the Padres at the time of recording are 44 and 47. They are fourth in the the NL West. I'm sorry. They've got this young man named Juan Soto, who is 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. So right now, his stock is about as high as it's ever going to be, because you're going to get a year and a half of Juan Soto.
Sure.
Right now, Juan Soto batting .265, 16 homers, 49 runs batted in. He's got an, let's see here, OPS of 905, OPS plus of 154. He's hitting about his career stats for everything, a little under on his batting average. But with San Diego struggling right now, do you try to pull the trigger and trade Juan Soto?
Why not? See if you can get something for next year. You know, if you're at this point, unless you think you have a genuine shot at rebounding and coming back and winning, all options should be on the table.
I mean, at this point, you can re-sign him to a deal. It's probably going to cost you an assload of money over a long amount of years,
right?
But I mean, even if you sneak into the playoffs, you're probably playing Atlanta. Who's 61 and 29. They have built a monster. Alex Anthopoulos has built a monster in Atlanta. I don't know if you've seen, by the way, because again, we're taking it old school here in terms of just kind of talking like we used to back when we first started this whole podcast here.
Of course,
having no limits, no rules. Looking at the Atlanta Braves, man.
Mind the pun. There's a championship belt there that is now moved to my display case. It's the No Limits Championship.
Yeah, that's
my most recent championship. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that I was able to be a champion.
You came out of retirement. You defeated a debilitating injury because of old age, and now you were a champion.
Yeah, were because I've recently have since lost it.
You can't take it away. You can't take that away.
That's why I have the physical copy of the belt, and it's on display, and it's something that I'm proud of, and that my kids enjoy looking at too.
So looking at the Atlanta Braves, now that I've got it popped up here, they've got Matt Olson at 29, Austin Riley 26, Spencer Strider 24, Ronald Acuna 25, Sean Murphy 28, Michael Harris 22, Ozzie Albies 26, Orlando Arcia 28. All under contract through the 2026 season. Arcia becomes a UFA in 2027. All of those players are under contract through at least 2027.
All right.
That is how you build a core.
Yeah, absolutely.
That core won the World Series. That is how you build a core long-term success. Holy crap. What Alex Anthopoulos could not do in Toronto, he has done in Atlanta, and he has done it very well.
Sometimes all you need is a change of scenery, man. And the ability to allow, because you never know, maybe he might not have been allowed the freedom that he has in Atlanta in his previous spot. So it's possible that was the case. A change of scenery, some flexibility in financials, and freedom. There you go.
The other thing I wanted to bring up too is there is a guy in Cincinnati who has been a lot of fun. I'm trying to find out what the stat is. You'll have to give me just a second here. They're 50-42, which is very surprising for the Reds. Just simply because they have not been really good for a long time, it feels like.
Okay.
But looking at a top prospect whom they called up recently, his name is Elly De La Cruz. He has played 31 games with the Reds, and let me see if the stat pops up here because I'm pretty sure I've seen it recently. They've done something like I think 75% of the games.
Really?
A day ago. Here you go.
Okay.
The Reds have gone 22-8 with him in the lineup.
What was the record?
22-8.
22-8 with him in the lineup?
With him in the lineup.
This
is the same guy who recently stole second, third, and home during the same at bat.
Okay. I remember that. Actually. So yeah, I mean, that tells you, and it may not necessarily mean that they went 22-8 because he's there, but you can't rule it out.
I mean,
as a strong possibility
in one sport, where vibes I think are having immaculate vibes means something.
Right.
Baseball.
Yes.
Because of the daily grind. So you bring up a guy like Elly De La Cruz, and all of a sudden they start winning. I don't think it's not a surprise.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Or you get the Atlanta Braves, who they build this big core, they commit money and years to a core, and they're out there kicking ass.
Yeah, it's the name of the game, man. Sometimes it's, like I said, sometimes it's about a change of scenery.
And you know what? I'm
flexibility.
I'm gonna tie this all into the New York Yankees because, again, looking at the Yankees right now, I don't think that Aaron Boone is a bad manager.
No.
I don't think they have a bad team. They've been bit by the injury bug very hard. But I think that they are either a big trade or a managerial change away from making some noise. Simply because you get to the point where things get stagnant.
Yes.
And it's like, hey, what's the shot in the arm that we're going to do?
Yeah. Ohtani, if they were to successfully trade for Ohtani, I think that would be the absolute shot in the arm that they would need.
Well, Derek Jeter recently said go out and get Juan Soto because, again, if you get Ohtani, you get Juan Soto. Both of those guys are going to eat at Yankee Stadium.
Absolutely.
Because the right field wall is like 175 feet from home.
It certainly is very Polo Grounds.
It's one of those ones where you see the video where the guy will like foul off a pitch, and then it's a foul, but then he'll like swing and a drive deep to right, gone, and it's like, oh, that's kind of how it happens.
Yeah, of course. Or as John Sterling would call it, oh, it's driven down to deep right. It is high. It is far. It is a foul. Foul ball. How do you like that, Susan? John, what do you... I thought he hit the ball out of the park. Well, Susan, he did. But what he did was he hit it to the right of the first base foul line, and that would be a foul ball. So we're back for the 1-2, and he strikes out.
Oh, by the way, that was a very good example.
Right, thank you.
I like that. I meant to share this recently. I'd have to find it. Oh, yes. Remember how Nick Castellanos always hits home runs at good times?
Yes.
Somebody did the research recently.
Okay.
Osama bin Laden was killed around 1 a.m. Pakistan time on May 2nd, 2011. That would mean it was around 4 p.m. on May 1st, 2011 in Fort Wayne when that happened. Okay. Nick Castellanos hit his first career home run in the first inning of a game in Fort Wayne. That started at 3:06 p.m.
What a stat.
Pulling that
again, Ryan. Nobody does it better, in my opinion, than you. You can pull out those stats out of friggin' nowhere, and I can sit here and be as perplexed as I am right now at the fact that a stat like that exists.
Also, I want to ask you, because I meant to ask this earlier in the podcast, I found some screenshots at about 4 o'clock this morning because I was wide awake. I've actually got the time here. Oh, no, it was 6:49 in the morning. Sorry.
Okay.
How much would you pay Shohei Ohtani? Right now, since 2021, when Mookie Betts signed the second largest contract in Major League Baseball, $365 million. Ohtani has a better batting average, more RBIs, more home runs, better OPS. The only thing Mookie Betts is better at, WAR. His WAR is 14.7. As a batter, Ohtani's is 12.3. On top of that, because again, pitcher and hitter, since Garrett Cole signed the largest contract among Major League Baseball pitchers at $324 million in 2021, Ohtani's had a better ERA, more strikeouts per 9, better opponent batting average, and a better WAR. The only thing that is not better is a win percentage, which Garrett Cole is at .679, Ohtani at .674 at the time of this post on Instagram from CBS Sports. So you put those together, you're looking at about $700 or $800 million.
Okay. Well,
You're
say
doing it?
how much would I pay? It's not my money.
No.
So I'm not paying anything.
But say you
back
were.
up the Brinks. Back up the Brinks
fair.
and bring him in. I would say I don't necessarily think you should get him like to one of those ridiculous like 10 to 13 year contracts. Like
I think, because I've been playing a lot of out of the park baseball 23 recently, and I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I built the Boston Red Sox so good by acquiring prospects, trading guys away,
out of the
building
park
it up.
baseball. What is that?
It's a lot of fun. It's like a text. It's almost like not like text based, but it's literally you don't play the games. You just like off season stuff and like during.
Oh,
the
really?
season.
So it's like franchise mode in the off season, but
it's
like,
so much. It is so much fun. It is so much fun.
All right.
So I won 6 straight World Series. I don't even play the games. I just sim. But
Okay.
what did I do? I had the best season in history. Didn't win the World Series. Had a couple seasons where they kept winning a lot, and I fired the manager. Won 6 straight World Series. It works. Sometimes
look
it
at
happens.
that. That's crazy.
But yes, I did also acquire Shohei Ohtani and paid him an assload of money.
Yeah.
But I think at some point, I don't think the bat's going to go away very quickly, but
No.
the pitching will.
Yeah.
It will come to a point where Ohtani maybe is a starter every so often, or maybe he's a reliever or something.
yeah.
Because again, you want to continue to
Yes.
keep it running, but
Yes.
paying him a lot of money.
I hate to
gotta
bring
do
this. I hate to bring this back to like a trust the podcast subject, but what do I always say when we talk about Josh Allen and how his passing and his running and how they really should work to better the running game around him so that way he can stay around longer as a passer.
Yep.
This is going to be the same. That'd be the same thing for Ohtani. The longer he plays the dual role, the more wear and tear he's gonna have. The quicker it would diminish. So
I was just gonna say you play to win the game, because we always say that every time on Trust the
yes,
Podcast.
you play to win the game. Thank you, Herman Ebbets.
That's why you take the damn field.
I gotta get that. You know what I gotta do is, now that I have soundboard capabilities, I'm going to have to get
That's got to
the
be one of
Herman
them.
Edward clip of
That's
play
gotta
to
be
win the
one.
game. Denny Green would be another one.
Yep.
We are who we thought they were.
You want to crown their ass?
We let him
on
off the
crown?
hook. Mount Denny. I'll never forget that. That was one of my favorite. That's one of my favorites, because I remember when the game was over, and it happened live. I was in my old apartment in Greece, and I had a 32-inch tube TV that was the main TV in my living room in my apartment, and then I had like a 19-inch tube TV in my bedroom. And I remember after that game happened, I was about to go to bed, and Brandon sends me a text and was like, "Dude, Mount Denny's about to erupt. I can feel it coming." And I'm like, okay. So I turned the TV on right on time to just see the epic meltdown
Just punching
happen
the microphone,
live,
yeah.
punching the microphone, cursing, walking off the thing. And the Sports Center anchors were like, "Well, we apologize about the language that was used. We could certainly understand the emotions being high." And then they tried to like loop it back around. But I remember when the shot was called, and it's like, oh, Mount Denny's about to erupt, and oh, he sure did.
Those are great
That
memories.
was classic,
but
man. Classic.
I guess, John, there's no time like the present to wrap this bad boy up. We've had a lot of fun today.
Absolutely. This
And
was
I'm
fun.
about to pee myself. So
Well, please don't, because you're sitting in the studio.
yeah, that'd be awkward.
Indeed.
So I'm Ryan Wolfe. John is at John Cimino. No, John is John. I'm Ryan. John is on Threads.
At I am JC Money.
I'm on the internet somewhere. You'll probably find me. If not, I'll be back here sometime soon on the podcast.
There we go.
Football season is a couple weeks away. I almost said pitchers and catchers report. No, the Bills report in I think a week and a half. Jets are the same. So we'll talk more football soon. We'll have to get Mr. Perez, if you're still listening at this point of the podcast. Thanks for keeping it locked and loaded, Lewis. We'll have to get together and do an NFL preview cast because that's always a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. Although I don't, I'll have to figure out the configuration. If we were doing it all together, I'll have to figure out how to make all three microphones.
Yeah,
work.
a little more shenanigans, a little more structure as well, because this one was kind of just thrown together just so we had an excuse to hang out.
No, you know what? It's totally good. That makes for some of the best podcasts, in my opinion. There has to be some structure, there has to be some flow, but there also has to be some breaks from it and some hijinks, and that was, I've built a podcasting career on that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, hey, with that being said, as always, we are better alive than dead.
You're not.
We will catch you same time, same place, sometime very soon.
Very soon.
Thanks for tuning in again, and as always, I guess go Bills, but that's the other podcast.
That's the other podcast. So don't do drugs, folks.
Yeah.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.